Do you guys remember SOPA PIPA? No? Okay. It was draft legislation in the United States, and it was a badly drafted and badly conceived law. The purpose of the legislation was to protect the interests of copyright holders, right? But the way that the legislation was drafted privileged the rights and the hopes and dreams and desires of copyright owners really high above the interests of internet users, right? People using the internet. And so what this legislation would have done, I'll try and do this briefly, but what the legislation would have done had it come into law is it would have put the onus on sites like Wikipedia to proactively monitor their sites for copyright infringement. And it would have put the onus on sites like Wikipedia to prove that there was not infringement taking place against a presumption that it was. It would have required us to hire, I don't know, 200 lawyers, administrators, people to sort of police the site, and it would have bankrupted Wikipedia, and it would have been an enormous economic hardship to lots of sites on the internet. And so, as this slide shows, the internet did indeed go on strike. You may remember the day without Wikipedia. We shut down Wikipedia for the day. And we did, collectively online, we did stop the passage of those laws, and so that was great. But it got me thinking. And what it got me thinking was, you know, we feel like we are sort of eternally on a road towards good, right? Progress happens in humanity, and the arc bends towards justice, right? But that's actually dependent on the efforts of real people working to make that kind of thing happen. It's not a foregone conclusion, right? And what I started to feel like, you know, we had this awesome new ability provided by technology to share and to communicate and to learn from each other online. And it was dawning on me that maybe we weren't going to actually do that, right? Maybe we were not going to be protecting and guarding and nurturing this new ability. Maybe we weren't going to be a good shepherd of the potential that it had. We're living in a kind of a false world where we're pretending that it's possible for people to have the ordinary measures of privacy and anonymity and you know, private spaces for themselves. We're pretending that that is still possible, but it is not still possible, right? So our situation is not sustainable. What that leads me to wonder is if there will be a trigger event or a series of trigger events that will cause some degree of change, some degree of acknowledgement of where we're at and therefore where we need to be. Back in 1945, nobody was predicting pugwash, and nobody was predicting the doomsday clock. We weren't predicting that those things would happen. But I think that humanity is sometimes, you know, when we try really hard, we are smarter and we are better than we give ourselves credit for being. And I also think that, you know, things don't change until one day they do change, right? And so Thomas Piketty, you know, has been arguing for a global wealth tax, and people have been laughing at him and saying, we can never possibly have a global wealth tax. And what he says is, well, you know, you can't, and you can't, and you can't, and then maybe one day you do, right? Like we are capable of changing the course of history if we try, right? And so what I think that we need for the internet, I think what we need is for, you know, a bunch of far-sighted people, computer scientists, civil libertarians, policymakers, smart people of all stripes and backgrounds to come together and figure out what kind of values we want the internet to reflect and what kind of values we don't want it to reflect.